Hello and welcome once again to Exit Strategy. This is the podcast where we ask comedians, what would you do with your life if comedy was no longer a part of it? Whoa, whoa, whoa. We got a great episode for you. We got something special, something crazy, something different. Because, Exit Strategy, basically, for the past 2 years or so, close to 2 years, we've been asking the question of comedians, what would you do with your life if you didn't do comedy? What path would you go down? What would you switch your focus to be? And I think a lot of the times we've been focusing on what they would do as a career. What would you do to pay the bills? What job would you get? Now, my guest today is Ryan Singer, and we kind of explode that question entirely into something higher and bigger. Because Ryan's just that kind of guy. There's a discussion with Ryan Singer, our guest, does not stay on the earthly plane. It goes out and gets higher and bigger and elevates. And I think he's elevated the exit strategy question entirely because not only do we talk about what job Ryan would do, but also how he would better himself as a human being. We get into the idea of maybe exiting comedy isn't just an element of, all right, what career, what do I do from 9 to 5 now? But maybe, all right, how do I create a better version of myself now that I don't have to worry about headshots or going out to bars every night to make face in front of comedy bookers? Like, you've got all this time. How about enriching your soul? That's just the kind of option that Ryan Singer brings to the table because he has heady thoughts. He gets into the what is it to be a human being. So this is going to be a very exciting episode to listen to. He's also very much into the paranormal, mysticism, esoteric things that are outside of our human understanding. So we go places in this episode. But to bring it down to earth just for a second, I want to express a goal of mine for this podcast. Now, we have managed to have a listener in the run of this podcast from every single United States state, all 50 of them, except one. We're actually only at 49. We have yet, in this entire run, to have a listener download and listen to this show in Alaska. And that is, I am kind of OCD about something like this. If there's 50 states and 49 of them have gotten into this exit strategy thing, Alaska, we need you to complete the 50-state run here. We need every single state to have participated in exit strategy. So if you happen to know somebody who lives in Alaska, that would be the perfect person to recommend this podcast to. There's got to be comedy nerd fans in Alaska who will be interested in finding out what comedians would do if their lives were not consumed by comedy. There's got to be that in Alaska. I might just have to book a comic who is from Alaska just to get their mom to listen to it. But let's try to do it the easy way. Let's try not to cheat. So if you know anybody in Alaska, that's where our focus is right now. We're going to get that state. I don't know what it is. It's the cold state. The cold state of Alaska. We need them to listen into this podcast to complete the 50. And then we'll set our sights on every single country. We got a ways to go. We've definitely hit a few. We had Australia. We've got Australia. We've got continents. We've got Australia. We've hit South America. I think we've hit every continent save for Antarctica. But right now, the focus is on Alaska. Let's get him on board with exit strategy. All right, let's get to it. We got a episode where we are going to get into some heady shit. So grab a cup of coffee and listen in to Ryan Singer here on Exit Strategy. Speaking of this neighborhood, I kind of tied one on last night because, and it kind of reminded me of you a little bit because last night there was 2 comedy shows like practically across the street from one another, and I was bouncing around, and then that turned into a bar crawl thing, and it just kind of reminded me of those days of like when you guys used to do Underbelly at Echoes Under Sunset. And how wild of that. Like, those nights were, everyone was there, It got drunken until the end of the night. Like, I kind of missed that.
I really miss that. Yeah, I definitely really miss that.
Yeah.
That is the show that ever since Echoes closed, has not been able to find it's forever home.
Isn't that weird? Like, that is a legitimate thing, though, of like a show moves venues, and it's just like all the parts are there. It just isn't like I think of the Tomorrow Show. I don't think the Tomorrow Show has been the same since it's left Steve Allen Theater. It's just a different show
because they just moved to the Lyric, right?
Yeah, they're on Home 2 now.
Yeah. There's I know we have bumped like that Underbelly show has bumped around to literally. I think we're in talks now with a new venue because we haven't. We were doing the Dynasty, but now they changed the way they're running shows there.
Yeah,
to where they kind of it's unless you're really packing the
they need you they need to make a little money. Yeah. The rent's a little high at the
so we're now trying to find I think it would be our fourth home since Echoes between the Dynasty, the Virgil, the Lyric.
Wow.
Yeah, so I mean we've just been and that show was so fun, but for whatever reason we've never had one write up about it. We've never had...
It's a wild show.
We've never had... Like, I don't know how to get a show written up. Like, you know what I mean?
Well, let me write it up now for anybody who's listening who doesn't know what it is. Underbelly is a comedy show where stand-up comics perform anything but stand-up comedy. And it is cool to see, what people do in that situation. But then also, you and Chris Garcia... kind of turn it into like you guys go outside of like you go out of your way to make it a spectacle yourselves. Like I've seen you get tased, I believe, at this show.
At the show.
I've seen some pretty wild shit go on. So I mean, it's like write them up. You guys are working hard.
Give us a write up. I mean, especially once we're actually up and running again. It's a really fun show because it started in Cincinnati. A friend of ours in Cincinnati, the scene there years ago, Mike Cody, who's in New York City now. He started the show and it was packed. I mean, we did it once a month, and it was a kind of really cool music venue. We did it at in Cincinnati, and you just couldn't. And after like the first or second one, then it was like you couldn't get a ticket to it.
Let's get to
but I think the difference, the big difference between the Cincinnati show, and I think I've noticed this about Los Angeles in general too, at least when it comes to something like specifically that show, like it was always the same people doing it in Cincinnati for the most part. So it was almost like a cast. It almost had like that, I don't know, SNL vibe to a certain degree where everybody would jump in on each other's. But out in LA, the show predominantly was solo performance based. Yeah. And I'd always try to do something to incorporate other people,
you kind of had a little bit of a cast that would be in the
but out here everybody just kind of wanted to do that like a solo piece.
Yeah.
I mean there's obviously exceptions, the majority anyway, but like back in Cincinnati it was really quite the opposite.
Yeah.
But it is, and there's so many people you want to have on a show out here it's impossible to try to be like, okay, let's have a cast. Because Chris and I talked about it 100 different times, like, we should have like kind of like a pseudo cast for the show.
Yeah.
But then it's just like, but we want so many people, and you know how it is. Once a month when you have a show,
it's a losing battle.
Even a weekly show, it's impossible to get everybody on all the time that you want.
Between getting like somebody on there that'll sell tickets. Somebody on like people who have like certain levels of experience, keeping a diverse lineup, so you're not just like all white dudes. Like you're basically like able to book 2 people a month. So like,
exactly,
what is it? That's 24 people a year. Yeah. You get to give stage time to like freely. Which, yeah.
And I think all those other things are important, especially the diversity aspect. Which a lot of guys in my position, I'm 42 and I've been doing stand up for 16 years. And the resurgence of stand-up is real the last 5 years. Podcasts started it. And I think podcasts may have started the resurgence of stand-up, but the diversity initiative, if we can call it that, that like swelled from within it, inside of itself, from the people who felt like they were marginalized or not able to be, given the same access to performance time and things like that. That is what really pushed the podcast surge to me into like full blown resurgence.
Yeah,
because people now are like, because now you have more people coming because like, my perspective is now being represented.
Finally, people are. Yeah, it's like for me, you know. Yeah,
exactly. So now, I always said that we jumped the shark and like really just being overly sensitive, maybe, or like overly PC when straight white guys start screaming appropriation of stand-up comedy.
yeah. Oh my God.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine? Like, if there's like it's like, well, can you really trace the beginnings of stand-up comedy? And if you really wanted to like do that mental exercise, I mean, obviously a lot of historical research goes into it. I would argue that probably Mark Twain, was one of the first road comics or stand-up comedians,
Orator.
Orator. But like when you start, I'm surprised I haven't heard one of these like men's rights activists actually doing that at this point.
Claim stand-up.
Hopefully, I don't. I don't think it's ever going to happen. But that's when the world turns into a farce to me.
Yeah,
like when something like that happens. But I don't think we're going to have to worry about it because the only reason stand-up comedy is so great right now is because of the inclusionary initiatives that have been taken to make it great.
Everybody was hemming and hawing about it at first, but like we have a person of color who books our show. So there's the 4 people on the show that originally did it. We're just a bunch of white people. We don't like. It just happens where I'm sure we have like an ingrown bias where we probably don't realize it. So to have somebody who like is very able to create a diverse lineup, just has a talent for it. It has made our shows so much better. It has made our shows so much, there's more energy, there's more life to it, because it's not the same show that you saw. Like, it's not like a lineup from 2008 or whatever. It's it's exciting. I like it.
And you and I don't have the same, like, act. Me and Brent Weinbach don't have the same act.
Yeah.
Weinbach's actually not a good example because he's not just a straight white guy. But... there's like Dave Waite and I don't have the same act. But at the same time, we do launch from the same place.
Yes.
Whether we want to accept it or not. And I don't have a problem accepting it, but I think we've kind of moved past the slightly, older straight white guy bitching and moaning about this thing. Like, well, Netflix won't even consider a straight white guy it's like, well, now, how does that feel?
Yeah.
How does that make you feel? So, how do you think everyone else has felt forever? And at the same time, it's like, guess what? Straight white guys are still getting specials on Netflix. So
they're not going anywhere.
So to say that they're not even considering that is, first of all, it's not true. And second of all, as a straight white guy, it's like, well, this is a great challenge for me. Yeah. Like, if I can be unique in my comedy, even though, certain aspects of, certain segments of society might be, like, try to lump it all together as one, like, to me, that's a great triumph.
Yeah. Well, it's better than going the other opposite, the opposite way, where you just dig your heels in and then that exclusion or whatever. Exactly. That becomes like, well, that's there's an audience out there. Like, and that seems to, I don't know.
There's a couple comics who have done that, who have really turned heel.
It's very cynical too, because it's like, it's opportunist, where you're like, well, there's clearly an audience of people who are awful that I can appeal to. Well, let's make money doing this way.
Isn't that so weird?
It's
like,
so
we
gross.
get to a certain point, maybe, and I try to have empathy about all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And maybe we reach a certain point where, we start with this dream of doing stand-up comedy. And, we believe it's art. We believe it's fun, if nothing else. Oh, this would be so fun to make jokes and make people laugh.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be great? I can do it in front of people. Maybe I'll get on television and do it. And then you get to a certain point where you do it for so long, where maybe things haven't broke the way you wanted them to, and now you're just freaked out about money and bills, and you're like, how can I make money doing this thing that I used to love that now has become almost this burden I have to carry with me? It's like, where's the joy in it for you anymore?
Yeah, then you're like a shell of a human being.
Yeah, and and to me, it's like really sad when it like gets to that, and it's just such an interesting thing to observe when you're like, oh, this person, I used to love this person.
Yeah,
and like you could it's not interesting, I guess, as much as it is sad.
Sad.
To see the
Terribly
to see the joy
heartbreaking.
seep out of someone. But I think, a good example would be Nick DiPaolo.
Yeah, I mean that's who I was thinking of when we were
I
talking.
used to really like Nick DiPaolo, and I remember being a young comic, and he came through Dayton, Ohio, to the comedy club there, and I'd be super excited. I'm like, Nick DiPaolo's coming here. This is great, right? And then with everything that just happened recently with it, and where it's like he's literally using images of the biggest social movements of our time, basically in an FU.
Yeah, as a way to be
juxtaposing them as they're the problem.
Yeah.
And it's just like, wow, what happened to stand-up comedy? For this person.
It's crazy though. I mean, you mentioned that they turned heel. Like, it's crazy that now in art there's bad guys. Like, there really is people who are like,
what has happened?
Yeah, I guess my persona is just awful, and that works. Like, people make livings doing that. Like, I mean, it's like punditry is now. You could be an artist too.
Yeah, there's no more idea of I perform stand-up comedy because I love the art form.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm for these people. Specifically for this, I think we could argue it's a small segment of the community as well.
Yeah, but it's loud.
That goes either way.
Yeah.
It's very loud, yeah. But and I think there's a reason they're the loudest, because they know that the only way to be heard is to be screaming bloody murder. And to me, that's like, you've got everything you need to know about it is in that, right? Those who scream the loudest have the least to say.
Yeah.
But at least in this regard.
Yeah.
But it's just like so crazy to me that like that's a thing that happens now.
Yeah.
Where this is like an art form. Like, there's not you don't really see it in, like, I mean, I don't know. I'm not really in the world of painters.
A bad guy painter.
But there's not like good versus bad in the world of painters.
Yeah.
It's everybody's fighting for the chance to not be forgotten and not get passed over and try to scratch out their living.
Yeah.
As opposed to just, picking, like, they want to pick a side, as opposed to like, I want to do comedy, and hopefully the comedy I do will reach people that enjoy it. Like, that's no longer like, isn't that all there really is?
Maybe
to
it's
this?
I don't know, is it just because it's a more verbal art form that it's just people can express these, like, I'm sure that painters shit talk each other,
No doubt.
but it just, maybe it isn't like, there's not a platform for that to become like outrage, and like
they can't mention it in their special. There's no like painters
paint
special.
it into the painting. The other
Netflix
painter
presents Van Gogh, and it's just like 3 hours of him painting something.
Oh, he hated those social justice warriors. That Van Gogh.
Yeah, it is. Well, when it comes to the idea of, trying to figure out like all the change that is happening, I think human beings, I think it's our tendency to always overreact at something.
Yeah.
I think the Patriot Act is a good example. And then like worry about it later.
Yeah.
And then we always pull back a little bit and become a little, when reason starts to set in a little bit, and the balance between reason and emotion becomes more, more level. But it's exciting to be a part of it, I think.
Yeah, we're in
like,
a
I'm
weird,
really
changing world. It's
I'm
crazy.
really glad to be in a world that is currently happening in stand-up comedy where every face on television doesn't look like mine.
Yes.
To me, that's, I mean, imagine all the different kids. And this idea, too, that stand-up comedy is mine. God, it's such bullshit. Like, the idea, like, so many of us can get, and I've been very precious about stand-up comedy over the years, in certain pockets where it's like, you're not doing it right.
Yeah.
All that means is you didn't do it the same way I did.
I did, yeah.
And which is so dumb, because there's no
I'm
rules.
the right one, yeah.
And I'm the right
Yeah.
one, of course. And which is indicative of just the way the world is working right now.
Yeah.
And I guess always has to a large degree. But imagine all the little kids that can now see a stand-up comedian on TV that looks like them.
Yeah.
And they get to also have this dream of doing stand-up comedy.
It's
Like,
things
isn't
aren't
that cool?
possible
That's
until
so
you
cool.
see other people do it. So, I mean, and it's the same with really every aspect of society. It's like, oh, now people, it's like, oh, it's possible to make a superhero movie with a black cast. Like, that is now launching the imaginations of so many children that have never seen themselves on a movie screen like that before. So it's just like, let's just do that everywhere. Let's all be better.
Let's all be better. And I do think, I do have hope for the human race. A lot of people are like, the
Yeah.
world's burning, the world's going to hell. Like everybody sucks. It's like, well, I mean, if that's your thoughts create the world that you live in.
Yeah.
And if that's what you think, then in fact, that's all that you will see.
Yeah, I feel like we're just sorting out whatever's coming up next. Like we're definitely phasing out of an old world into a new world, and it's just a really awkward fit right now.
It's almost like a fucking Rubik's Cube.
Yeah.
I don't know if I should be using that kind of language on here, but
you can.
You
can say Rubik's Cube.
Yeah. When you're like, oh, I'm so close to getting the yellow side figured out.
Yeah.
And then you totally screw up the blue side.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of what's happening here with just human beings in general. Whenever we have like a major shift or a major change, we get really close to figuring out one aspect, but along the way, we maybe kind of screw up another side.
Yeah, we're just trying to make it work.
Yeah, we're just trying to get it all together.
Trying to put everything into place, and it's not quite there yet. But we'll get there. It's just I don't know.
I do think we'll get there because there are people fighting to get there, and there are also other people, really wanting to. I used to get made fun of a bunch from some friends of mine for you play devil's advocate too much, and to me, I'm just like trying to understand why somebody would do something.
Yeah,
like oh no, they're a piece of shit. I'm like, well, I mean, what made them?
You're
behave?
practicing empathy, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's like, what made them behave?
Yeah,
like, in a way that a piece of shit would behave, because I'd really like to think that nobody is a monster.
Yeah.
But many people behave in monstrous ways.
And something created that situation.
Yeah. And, I mean, this got pretty deep pretty quick.
Yeah, it did, didn't it?
But
I kind of thought that was going to happen, though. I was like, Ryan Singer's coming on the show. It's going to get a little
to me, it's
heady.
so damn beautiful, though. Like, it's hard. I was getting emotional earlier, just even talking about, like, all the different kids. I mean, because to be so selfish of a dream is, to me, is like, it's really deplorable.
Yeah.
Like, that's when when people say that person should quit stand-up comedy. Oh, you're going to tell someone they're not allowed to have a dream anymore?
Yeah.
You are behaving like a monster.
You don't have, like, what puts you on a higher platform? Like, why is your way, like, why are you above that? You know what I mean? And I've been wrong so many times, too, like, because I used to think that when I'd see somebody who just was like, get this person off stage, they're wasting 5 minutes of my life. And then 2 years later, like, everything clicks. They figured it out, their own little path, because it's all trial and error. It's all just like, this way didn't work, so we'll go this way. And it's all these like minute little modifications to get up to where you need to be. They figured it out, and I was totally wrong. And now I don't do that anymore because I don't want to sound like an asshole.
And it's, it's human nature for our brains to operate in a way of like discernment or judgment.
Well, also in stand-up, you're geared towards putting things under a critical microscope anyway. It's just sometimes we have to maybe turn that off a little.
Maybe just be a person who enjoys something.
Yeah.
Or it took me years to realize that just because I don't enjoy something doesn't mean it doesn't have value to other people.
Yeah.
And it took me way too long to learn that.
Yeah.
And I think that applies specifically to what we're talking about here. Like, just because I don't think somebody's funny at all, to me, doesn't mean millions of other people won't find that person funny.
It doesn't invalidate them at all.
And it doesn't mean that I'm better or smarter or more sophisticated or more intellectual than other people. I mean, pardon me, that's a tough one to let go of. Because there is some stuff that you're like, are you kidding me? This is working?
Yeah.
But it's like, yeah, it's working, because not everybody has the time to go so deep into all of this. They've got, 3 kids they're raising. Yeah. They're working 2 jobs. They don't have time to deep dive so far into The Day the Laughter Died Part 2 by Andrew Dice Clay that they actually thought he was doing the highest of all satire at one point before realizing, no, you've gone too far.
Yeah.
This is just some pretty...
You're creating
hateful...
some perimeters of a situation. Yeah, exactly.
Like, not everybody has... It's a real luxury to go into deep intellectual conversation.
Yeah.
And I think that's why, when it comes to being aware of luxury and privilege, it's difficult. It was difficult for me to understand that Uncomfortable conversations needed to be had. It's
You
like,
have to grow.
To grow.
Yeah.
And growth, I mean, let's be honest, growth sucks.
Yes, it's not fun.
It's not fun. And
being wrong is awful, but
Yeah.
you have to be you have to realize something.
And I used to, I've said for years that like my favorite thing in the world is failure.
Yeah.
But there's only one thing I like more than that, and that's success. But it's like failure. I mean, this is our lives. Failure is our lives in entertainment, specifically comedy. But because a success is a failure the next show.
Yeah, and we're built on a series of failures and learning from them.
And it's instant.
Yeah.
We know instantly if something is a success or a failure. And so then when you go through these long phase failure or success or growth, because growth is definitely a long-term commitment. It's not a one-night stand.
Yeah.
And I'm like really I've embraced like the woo. Like I'm into like all of this like paranormal and supernatural and mystical stuff as well. And that at the heart of all of that to me is a personal growth, spiritual growth. And God, it's difficult and it sucks. And
I wanted to talk about. I do want to talk about that. So I kind of want to. We're getting into a heady situation here. Maybe this is too much, but so you have this personal growth that you want to go through, and I think that it's obviously not just in your career. It's as a human being, you want to be a better person, maximize the well-being you can put out into the world. But then also, do you ever find that comes into conflict with what you need to do as like a career in comedy?
Constantly.
And then how do you reconcile that? Like personal growth means fostering relationships. Stand-up comedy means like kind of sealing off things to accomplish a very hard goal. It's how do you balance these things?
For me, like the ultimate conundrum is the spiritual growth is all about the dissolution of my ego.
Mm-hmm.
And not being attached to my identity and understanding truly what is important in existing, and that's being present in the moment, not being attached to labels and measurements of success other than, emanating and receiving love.
Yeah.
Stand-up comedy is the acceleration and celebration of my ego.
Exactly. Yeah.
To amplify it to as many people as humanly possible, to sustain myself, financially in a career, so I can have the trappings of the physical world that give me comfort and physical enjoyment. And so I always ask comic friends, and I have for years, and I always love seeing what answer it is. It's like if you could choose between being remembered as one of the 3 greatest stand-up comedians of all time, or you could choose whatever your definition of this is, self-actualization.
Mm-hmm.
Which do you choose? To be remembered as one of the greatest, or not the greatest, one of the top 3 greatest, or self-actualization?
Your name etched in the Mount Rushmore of comedy, or like bliss, basically.
Or bliss for potentially eternity.
Yeah.
And to me, it's a trick question, because if I were to self-actualize, and my true mission in this iteration of physical form was to do stand-up comedy to reach people.
Yeah.
Who's going to be a better stand-up comedian than one who's self-actualized? Right?
Oh man, to have achieved that, like the goal of so many people of this, like I'm self-actualized. Now you know what I'm going to do. I'm going to go into comedy. I'm going to book some gigs.
Maybe it's
Lord.
me being foolish thinking that it's possible, but honestly, I would choose self. If they weren't tied into each other like that in that fantasy, I would choose self-actualization. I truly would. I think you have to for the sake of your soul. It's like I do think it's possible to, and I think my stand-up my stand-up comedy has definitely changed. I think a lot in the last 8 years, specifically since I've lived in Los Angeles. But I think it's changed a lot in the last 4 to 5 years.
Yeah.
And I think the paranormal podcast I do and all the research that ended up taking me down. I went from like this casual fan, an observer, someone who had experiences to, being really interested in it, to now someone who was like researching, talking to
Digging
hundreds of people, digging in, and going into the field, doing investigations, which is, it's a huge step, like literally and figuratively, to actually walk in to that. So it like has changed me so much in the way I view the world and the way I view, my identity and who I am. I'm really not attached to the outcome of what my career becomes anymore.
Yeah. Well, that's the growth you're talking about.
That's the growth. Yeah. And it's not great for, what many people would be describing as the drive to succeed.
Yeah.
The hunger, the hustle, the grind.
The grind is the word I would use.
Yeah, the grind.
It's a grind.
To me, that doesn't mean I still love doing it and putting the work in and going out and performing. It brings me great joy.
Yeah.
So I'm going to keep doing it. And I'd like to think that my stand-up comedy has become a lot better. Or to me, it has. I mean, I'm becoming the truer sense of who I am as a person. Is being reflected on stage. And I think that's when people say you found your voice or you got to find your voice, or I think essentially that's all we're saying.
Yeah.
Is the person on stage, how close of a reflection of the actual person you are or the spirit of who you are? Is it, how close of a representation is that?
Yeah.
And to me, my persona on stage or my, who I am when I perform has become closer and closer to how I feel.
To who you are, yeah.
Yeah, to how I feel. So I think the spiritual growth, and, there's times where I get so cocky where I'm like, I'm interpreting the signs of, because that's the thing I've noticed too. Once you open up yourself to the woo, and like really lean into it, the universe is like, here you go, buddy. Here's a bunch of stuff.
Here's some answers.
Right? And so, and then that leads to me getting a little bit arrogant about like, I know how to interpret all the signs of the universe and what they mean for me. And then the universe goes, let's see about that. And I had a big example recently. I rolled a one-roll Yahtzee. And anybody who knows Yahtzee, it's 5 dice.
Yeah.
And I do a thing for the last 10 years. Well, I'll pick up my Yahtzee dice. I love Yahtzee. And and if I roll a Yahtzee on the first roll, so all 5 dice will be the same number, that means I have to do the first thing that pops into my head because that's the universe telling me to be spontaneous.
Yeah.
In 10 years, I've rolled one-roll Yahtzee. And my first thought was, go to Big Bear. And I have since fallen in love with the mountains.
Yeah.
90 miles east of here. And so I've never used them as a divination tool with a specific question in mind.
Yeah.
Recently, I had a relationship that I'd been, involved in on and off for years. And we used to play Yahtzee. And so I pick up the dice and I'm like, I just couldn't stop thinking about like, I needed to do something about this, right? And to try to, make this happen again.
Yeah.
So I pick up the dice. I'm like, if I roll a one-roll Yahtzee, that means I'm supposed to reach out to her and tell her what I've been thinking. I throw the dice onto my bed. There's other things on my bed. I don't even really pay attention at first because I've done this, thousands of times, and it's only happened once.
Yeah.
Out of the corner of my eye, I look, and I believe it's 5 sixes. And it was 6s. It was 5 sixes.
Yeah.
I fall down like to a knee in my bedroom. Like, holy shit, this is the first time I've ever specifically asked the dice a question.
Yeah.
The universe a question using the dice. And I got the one-roll Yahtzee. So I'm like, well, universe, you're screaming at me now, right? Well, let's do this. Being a stubborn bastard.
Yeah.
I'm going to pull one card from 3 different decks I have of tarot decks, angel card deck, and then a gypsy card deck. All 3 cards reinforce what the dice are saying.
Yeah.
And obviously that's me framing these cards into my worldview here, purposefully. So I call, I reach out, we do the thing, right? And I'm like, the universe wants us to be together. I'm going to have children with this woman, like all that kinds of stuff. And we get together in a park and talk. And then she's like, I need some time to think about this. And I'm like, this is a done deal. And the universe wouldn't lie to me. And then like 2 days later, she's like, no.
Oh.
And I'm like,
But
I told you what happened with the dice. And it turns out that the universe was telling me, yes, you need to reach out to this woman because this specific reaching out will finally give both of you the closure you need in the relationship.
Reaching out didn't mean necessarily...
We're getting back together.
Yeah.
And reaching out meant finally put some closure on this for both of you.
Yeah.
And, humans make a mess. So nothing is ever that easy.
Yeah.
But I do believe, that's a great example of the universe being like, oh, you think you know what this means? We'll show you how. I get too cocky in my ascension of soul from time to time.
We're all little.
So but the universe does a really great job of reminding you, hey, stop thinking you got it all figured out. Be in the moment of your life and trust that what happens will be the best thing for you in the long run.
Yeah.
And as long as you're not a total piece of shit who has a disregard for everyone else, including yourself, like things are going to work out as long as you really try and care and, do the right thing. Like I'm huge into manifestation.
Yeah.
I have a money altar right now. And I'm ready for an income escalation. You know what I mean? This is what we're focusing on.
You're putting that out into the world.
I'm tired of having financial stress. So, but that doesn't mean I just sit back and wait for the money to roll in.
Yeah.
What it has done, it has motivated me to even work, not necessarily harder, but better.
Yeah.
In the things I'm doing. And so it's, the secret, I believe in the secret in the sense that your thoughts create your world.
Yeah.
And therefore your future. But you can't be lazy about it. It's like you can't just be you have to be an active pacifist.
But it's just sort of putting something out there so that it's more in the forefront of your mind. It's sort of like almost like a mental reminder of like this is something that's important to you.
Keep your eye on the prize, so to speak. And the same way with like peacefulness and like love. You can't just sit back and be like, well, I'm going to love everybody.
I'll do it.
Sorry about what the president says. And like everybody, blah, blah. You have to like actively show and be love if you can't. And I don't know all the ways to do that. I'm still just trying to figure this all out.
That's what we're all trying to do.
That's what we're all
Nobody
trying to do.
knows how to do it. I mean,
But,
that's all that self-actualization. It's not an overnight situation
But
to
the
create.
point
the
is,
best
it fucking sucks. Like the growth and like it's difficult
Yeah.
to not, because I just want to lean back into like, just not caring about just getting fucked up all the time or just like filling my body with garbage.
Yeah.
Looking out for me and me alone. Like, it's easy to want to lean right back into that.
Yeah.
So,
It's up to you to pull yourself and say, we got to be better than that.
Yeah, exactly. And
I feel like we've kind of danced around this topic, but maybe we'll put a little more like finite definition on it. But let's talk about, all right, comedy's out of the picture. Let's talk about exit strategies. Like it sounds like that you put a lot of effort into outside of comedy, but you've also put a lot of effort into making the gigs, writing the stuff, going on tour, doing all that. I'm going to take all that away from you in this hypothetical sense.
Taking all of it away.
Take all of it away. We're
all
talking
the outside work,
comedy's,
all the comedy.
Comedy's out.
Oh, okay.
We got to go down another path. What are you doing? I think specifically we're talking career, but it sounds like you've also got a lot of other things you'd like to focus that energy on too, just with your own mental well-being.
I definitely have a ton of other interests.
Yeah.
This is what like the interesting thing about this podcast is to me. Like it's like this is really, I mean, because people joke about it all the time, like casually, like, oh, if I wasn't doing stand up, I'd blah 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 blah. But if you really thought about it, if you really went into it like you do here, it's, I'm such an all my eggs in a basket kind of guy.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, I think that's why I'm in my financial situation, which I'm doing okay. But like, I believe in things so much that I'll be like, I'm putting all my money into this.
Yeah.
Because I believe it'll pay off, like a project that I self-produce.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I have to believe. So I've done the same thing with my career. So it's like, I put all my eggs in this comedy basket.
Yeah.
So I don't even... I'm not even looking at it. I'm very monogamous. I'm not even looking at other baskets. But if I had to pick, I mean, it's already part of my career, the paranormal world.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's kind of a cheat for me to go into that direction here.
Well, let's explore it because I'm actually kind of curious about it.
Okay. It's really fascinating to me, like the world of the paranormal and like paranormal investigation. And trying to find evidence of the supernatural, the mystical, of things existing in the liminal space.
Yeah,
which makes people very uncomfortable. It's like something's dead or something's alive.
Yeah,
something's a man or something's a woman.
There's no shades of gray.
Like there's no in between.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, there is, motherfucker. Ghosts are real. That's why gender's bullshit, right? So. To be able to prove that death is not real.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I'm I've been very boundaryless, like, in my life. Like,
yeah.
I've always really enjoyed, like, the, I guess, excess and or, the outer, the most of something. So that's what the appeal of the paranormal to me is.
That
because
more.
Now you have, because I would argue that the biggest discovery that the human animal made once we have consciousness, however the fuck that happened, was the realization of our own mortality. It changed everything. Once we realized we died, and were no longer, that changed everything we did from there on out, right?
Yeah.
In such an probably the biggest discovery of all time.
That'll change the way you live when this ends at some point.
So, having said that, if you can provide evidence that we in fact do not die, it is the biggest discovery since discovering we did die. We do die. Does that make sense?
No, it does. Like,
so,
it's a complete paradigm shift.
For total paradigm
you
shift.
would exist as a human being.
So some people think like everybody's so ridiculous running around with these night vision cameras looking for ghosts and like making these recordings on digital recorders, like trying to communicate through spirit boxes as they're called, scanning radio stations. It's like, oh, they're so stupid and childish. And it's like, are they really, or are we trying to find, because can you measure the supernatural using natural devices? I don't know the answer to that. But yet here I am continuing to try.
You're on the hunt for something huge.
I am trying to make more people understand, trying to provide tangible, irrefutable evidence that death is an illusion.
Yeah.
And therefore, everything in our lives should change. Everything,
like
from the top
fundamentally,
to the bottom. Fundamentally, throw into the mix. There's two major thoroughfares, two major highways that run through the middle of Paranormal City. You've got Ghost Avenue and Alien Street. Okay.
Yeah.
Ghost Avenue changes everything. Death is not real.
Yeah.
At least in the way we believe it is. We have after form, not afterlife.
Yeah.
Of this physical form that's encapsulating our consciousness or whatever ghosts or spirits or souls is. Then on the other, vivisecting that, is that a word?
I don't know.
Going right through that is Alien Street or whatever you want to call it. We are a small part of an intergalactic neighborhood.
Vast. Yeah.
Holy shit. death isn't real, and we're the corner of a block in a major city, everything changes again.
Yeah.
Like, these are the two biggest things to me. Like, death isn't real, and we're not alone. I mean, what is bigger than that? So, like, my life would be devoted to studying, researching. I mean, and that means I'd probably work at, Home Depot, or who knows where I'd be working.
Yeah.
And then dedicating all of my spare time, like I do now, to researching it. I mean, because stand-up comedy is my job.
There's not really a paid, like, there's not like a paid position for paranormal investigation.
Unless you have like a super popular podcast and you can do Patreon,
or maybe
you do the circuit.
Are there any
speaker.
universities that have like grants for
there
something
was,
like that? Or is it not?
I think there's
looked
University of Northern Georgia.
Yeah.
I believe has a parapsychology.
But it's not like an accepted thing where like,
No.
yeah.
Dr. Jeffrey Mishlove, who used to have this show called Thinking Aloud, he has rebooted it, and it's called New Thinking Aloud, like ALLOWED. He has the only, postgraduate degree in parapsychology. He's got, I think, a doctorate in parapsychology from UC Berkeley. Yeah. And that is the only
one there is.
The only one that exists. And as far as I know.
Yeah.
There are other schools, they're like modern mystery schools, you could call them.
Yeah.
That teach all kinds of esoteric knowledge and course studies.
Yeah.
But
this is not an easy path to go down.
Yeah, you can be an author. If you're an author, you write books, you can do that. I mean, you can do the circuit of like conventions.
Yeah.
That's not a lucrative. It's not like you get super rich doing that either.
So there's a real parallel to like the act of starting out in comedy with like day job and then night job passion. Like,
for sure.
Day job for the money and night job for like what I really want.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
And
well, you'll be well suited because you've already, you've
built
already
for that.
done that.
I'm built for that. And so, it'd be, ideally what I would do is I would be like a full-time paranormal investigator of some kind and researcher. And I really love, and when I say paranormal, I mean a lot more than just ghosts or just aliens. I love to me, paranormal is outside the normal. Yeah. So we're talking like mystery school shit. We're talking, like anything that's, quote unquote esoteric, alchemy. Yeah. Freemasonry, secret society stuff, all this, because basically all sacred geometry, a lot of that, all these secret societies, basically they're ways to make someone work for getting really special knowledge. Yeah. Allegedly, right? Yeah. The idea of these ultimate truths that exist in the universe and the power that comes to a person from understanding and knowing these things is immense. So if I'm not mistaken, at some point along the way, people were like, not everybody should be able to know all this stuff, right? Because absolute power corrupts absolutely, as they say. And so people were not trustworthy of other people and didn't want everyone who would have bad intentions with it to have all this powerful information. Yeah. So they're like, we need to, let's kind of control the information source here. And if somebody wants it, they'll come get it.
Through us.
Or, there's different groups of people, right, who have kind of, corralled all this together. And that's not to say you're not allowed to have it. Anyone is allowed to have it. Yeah. But you have to now look for it. You have to go search for it. And especially now with the internet, anybody could be a high-level Freemason now. You know what I mean? Yeah. Or a Rosicrucian or one of these like secret orders that are all about knowledge and alchemy. which is more than just turning shit into gold, by the way. It's like we're talking immortality. We're talking the transmutation of soul and form into an immortal state, staying forever.
You got too much on your plate. There's so many things. Like you don't have enough time to investigate all this stuff. You need to have a focus on one or two, maybe. But,
That's a good point.
Yeah.
So to me, that's like all that stuff is what I'm trying to is what I spend my like quote unquote free time. Researching and looking into, and not to mention just the physical evidence of the UFOs that exist.
Yeah.
The physical evidence of ghosts that exist. It's immense. It's overwhelming. And anybody who says UFOs are bullshit, it's like now you might as well be a flat earther to me.
Yeah.
You're denying an overwhelming amount of evidence staring you in the face, and you choose to believe this thing that isn't true. It's
also kind of like we were talking about with like the white dude comic that digs in, like, why is your opinion like it's just a big universe we inhabit.
Exactly.
I mean, that's just statistically, there's got to be something out there.
And at some point, and I don't expect everyone to have the time to spend 15 minutes on Google looking up UFOs, but that's really all it takes to find overwhelming evidence of the existence of UFOs. I'm not saying who's driving them.
Yeah,
I'm not telling you who the pilots of these ships are.
Just be open to the.
But the evidence, the overwhelming evidence, is there, and you're being ignorant to it now. Yeah. If you think it's all BS, it's because you're uninformed, or ill-informed, and it's there.
Let me ask you a nuts and bolts question about this.
Okay.
Now, obviously, Los Angeles is where you live if you want to make inroads in the entertainment industry. But now that that's not the case, you could be located anywhere. Is there a specific
spot?
What would be like the hot spot that you would have your eye on?
That's a really good question. I just drove through, and I was only there for about 14 hours, and I almost cried leaving. I mean, I was crying as I left. Sedona, Arizona. I
thought it would be somewhere in that little area.
Which is allegedly, some people say the whole little city is an energy vortex.
Yeah.
And there are, I think, 5 energy vortexes there that you can go see, like trees growing crooked and like, twisting, which I'm not going to sit here and say those are definitely energy vortexes, because I'm sure there might be some kind of scientific explanation for why a tree would grow.
Yeah.
Twisted like that. But that scientific explanation also just might be another way of defining energy vortex.
Yeah, like an explanation for something.
Yeah, some kind of magnetic anomaly or something, right?
I can see you in Sedona.
But yeah, Sedona, I mean, it's pretty expensive to live there, I think. Although there's people working retail at crystal shops.
Yeah, there's got to be a way to do it.
There's got to be places to do it.
Maybe just right on the outskirts of Sedona.
So yeah, I would be Sedona. I try to be on a ley line.
What's a ley line?
A ley line are these like alleged energy lines, this grid around the world. Although there is, God, I hate the snow. I hate cold. Yeah. So I wouldn't be in the Northeast, even though like Gettysburg area is allegedly the most haunted place in the country because of all the history there. There's a place called the Skinwalker Ranch in southern Utah, which is apparently one of the most high paranormal activity places. It's like a 400-acre, 500-acre like ranch. It's privately owned. There are definitely hot spots of like paranormal activity.
You might not need to be on the road. Like feeling like planting yourself in one spot. You're just going to want to
be a vagabond to some degree.
You're going to have to tour.
Yeah,
almost.
there's also something called the UFO Highway.
Yeah.
It's the what is it? I forget the latitude. Latitude is across, right? Or longitude is across.
Latitude is across.
Is across,
yeah.
And because a latitudinal study and like sociology is like a long term, overlong, or longitudinal study. Oh, it doesn't matter.
Who knows?
That doesn't matter. The point is, there's this one of the what would we just call them?
Latitudinal.
Yeah. What are those defining?
The coordinates.
Yeah. There's a word for it. I can't. It's on the tip of my brain. Anyway, apparently along this thing across the whole country, there's all this paranormal activity, and it kind of mirrors Interstate 40.
Yeah.
Which goes across most of the country. from like California and like Nevada area all the way through Tennessee.
Yeah.
But that parallel, that line has a ton of like cow mutilations, all kinds of things. So it would be some city probably along
that line.
Along that line. And Sedona's not far from that.
Yeah.
And there's, Taos. New Mexico is pretty rad.
It feels like the Southwest has a lot of
Southwest would probably be my
on.
jam.
Yeah. I think you're going to be in the Southwest.
You're
going to be
adorned in turquoise.
taking some excursions out when you have a chance. But it sounds like, I mean, honestly, as far as exit strategies go, I feel like you've already put a little...
I'm in the mountains. I'm in the desert.
You've put a little into this already.
And I'm doing whatever I can to, pay as little rent as possible or as mortgage as possible.
Yeah.
Like if I wasn't in entertainment right now, I would probably be paying like $300 a month on a mortgage.
That's true. You are living in Los Angeles. It's not
like
the best.
in the desert somewhere, or like somewhere really beautiful. And like I need nature.
Yeah.
I need nature desperately. So, and I'd be probably living a very, I don't know. I don't want to say meager, but I don't
simpler,
need
maybe.
much. I don't. Yeah, I mean, I don't buy into. I've never really bought into money, and as far as like need a ton of it.
Yeah,
I need so much. And when I was younger, I did really want to be famous, and that's kind of melted away from me.
Yeah,
and
it's not all it cracked up to be.
Yeah, and it's like I don't want to go to the grocery store and have everyone looking at me.
Yeah,
like that's never been my appeal. And we know people who have achieved that, and maybe they love it, maybe they don't. I don't. It's not up for me to decide their life.
Yeah.
They get to pick and choose. But for me, doesn't make me better than them. That's just not what I want.
Yeah.
And I do want to be successful in entertainment, but I don't. I've never wanted people taking my photo going to the gas station, like Britney Spears type stuff. So, like for me, I don't really care about money, so I don't need much, and just a nice little place where I can do my work.
Yeah, I think you would be happy with a modest lifestyle.
Modest,
just doing what fulfills you intellectually and metaphysically, and curiosity, just constantly being stoked.
I'd probably have about 26 self-published books right now on Amazon.
So that's where your career is, right there.
Yeah.
Well, I like it, and I think that it's the most Ryan Singer episode of Exit Strategy we've ever had. But we have to take a little break.
Okay.
But when we come back, you're going to choose the sponsor for this week's episode. Maybe this is where all of this is moot, and you can sell out big time.
Oh, you know what?
Become a pitch man for something. This could be you could be the new Flo from Progressive. We're going to come back with more Ryan Singer. We're going to find out who the sponsor is for this week's episode right after this. This is by far, I think, the headiest discussion of exiting there ever was. But I kind of knew it when you were coming in. Like this wasn't going to be a conversation that stayed on like the ground. It was going to go.
We're gonna blast off a little bit.
We're going to blast off. It was going to go a little above and beyond there. But I like it. I like because exit strategy has always been sort of about like career, but then to bring in that idea of self-actualization, where like there's goals, I guess, in life that are more important.
Like
sometimes.
We're talking like an actual exit strategy of my spirit,
and
my soul from my body here.
I'm going to have to reorient this entire podcast to that now. But before we get back into that kind of discussion, let's get down to brass tacks, hardcore, making money, sponsorships, advertising, capitalism, boom. We don't have sponsors on this show, so that's why I have the guest choose the sponsor. Maybe, just maybe, someone will hear it, and that could be a big opportunity for you. Ryan, who is the sponsor for this week's episode of Exit Strategy?
This week's episode is brought to us in illuminating awareness of stevia by stevia.
Stevia, the sweetener.
The sweetener.
The sweetener.
I mean, Sugar has been resting on its laurels for way too long. And stevia came in, then, Johnny Come Lately. I mean, I feel like that song by the Eagles could be playing.
Yeah.
There's a new kid in town. Everybody loves you.
Stevia marches in.
Stevia, I like every other person who's alive in the modern world, in the Western world, is addicted to sugar. I am addicted to sugar, and to such a high degree. And stevia, I feel like, might just be the one thing that saves my life.
It's stepping in and saving things for you.
And hopefully, scientific research and studies don't come out in the future telling us how bad stevia is. But stevia is like my jam now.
Anytime a sweetener comes in, it's going to have a little hype behind it. Now, hopefully, yes.
But right now, this all natural, all natural. Like stevia is all natural. It gets the job done.
Yeah.
It doesn't give you diabetes. I am not a doctor saying all these things.
But they make the same claims.
And people always say, don't use too much stevia. You just need a little bit, gets the job done. No.
Lots of it.
Go for it. I'll tell you what, I drink a coffee. I wake up and I'd have at least 2 cups of coffee every day.
Yeah.
And I used to be one of those sugar-based creamer guys.
Yeah.
And now I'm straight stevia, maybe a little half and half, or maybe some almond milk or soy milk. But stevia, here's what you do. You get a regular coffee mug and you pour stevia into it. I mean, you pour it. You pour stevia into. So you can no longer see the bottom of the coffee
of stevia.
mug. Now, it looks like you're in Aspen and you just had a fresh 3 inches of snow, right? You got some powder. Now you just have a powder-based bottom of the mug, and then pour the coffee on top of it.
Splash a little
cream after that,
if
that's what you're into. And you have what I would argue is maybe the most delicious beverage you're going to have that day. Unless you have a milkshake later. But that's a different thing.
That's another thing. Have you ever had a stevia-based milkshake? Is that a thing yet?
That is something we need to figure out.
We got to work that. Because you're a milkshake... I was going to say fiend. I don't know if that's
I would say
I've
been off. I'm allowed to have a milkshake. I don't know when this comes out, but Memorial Day is when I'm allowed to have a milkshake again. I've been off milkshakes for self-imposed. Too many milkshakes.
Yeah. Ryan Singer is known as a milkshake fanatic.
Love milkshakes. Was doing them almost every day there for a minute. So had to move away from that because I'm in my 40s now. I don't have the metabolism I used to.
Yeah. You got to look out for yourself. But have they made a stevia milkshake to kind of?
There's got to be a stevia based milkshake out there, and if not, I'm going to make it.
We're going to
get some dairy free ice cream.
Yeah.
With some stevia, we'll get some all natural strawberries. Throw a banana in there, maybe a touch of peanut butter. Boom. What else do you need? The high fructose free peanut butter. The organic natural peanut butter. I mean, that milkshake's only going to cost about $17 to make.
But it's going to be good for you. And the more that we create a market for these products, the price will go down.
Yes, exactly.
That's why you got to get on stevia now.
Supply and demand. Stevia will change your life. It's changed mine. You'll be healthier. You'll be happier. You'll be more energetic. You'll be more focused. Without stevia, I would probably be a men's rights activist.
That's the pitch right there, stevia. You heard it. Without stevia, I'd probably be a men's rights activist.
Not only will stevia help you wake up, it'll help you be woke.
Yes. Whoa, stevia helps you get woke, and it's a double meaning because it's your coffee and it's your mentality.
Yep.
Ryan, I think we've got something here. So get yourself. Is it like a spoonful, or are you getting the packets? What do you?
I'm getting the container.
The container
that has the flip open lid.
So you can scoop as much as you need.
You can scoop as much as you want, or you can I just do the
shake.
I do the shake out.
Shake
them out.
Well, grab yourself some stevia next time you're in the grocery store sugar aisle. Put that sugar down. Get the stevia. Now, Ryan, as far as the Ryan Singer, plugging him. Where should people go? What should people do? If they want to know more about you?
Well,
what's the best thing to do?
I'd love to have people, give me a click and a follow on Instagram and Twitter. It's Rysing, Rysing. I say Rysing. When I picked those names years ago, I thought people would read it as rising.
But they don't.
So I just take the first half of my first and last name, combined them. So Ryan Singer, I was like, oh, rising. And then everybody's always like, Rysing. And I'm like, This didn't work out the way I wanted.
You don't have
But it's
control
still
of
fun.
those.
But yeah, RyanSingerComedy.com has links to everything.
Yeah, there's like some albums on there that you
I've
can
got
download.
4 albums that are
Yeah.
on Spotify. My last album is actually free download. It's called Free Love. I think it's my best album. And there's download links on Dropbox and Google Drive links on my website, on the homepage of my website for that album. I have 2 different podcasts. One I've been doing for over 5 years called Me and Paranormal You, where I interview people with paranormal experiences or abilities. I've had a lot of crazy, great interviews on there. I smoked DMT for the first time. We recorded it a few years ago with my buddy Shane Moss.
Yeah.
And then my new podcast with my friend Angela Lovell is called This Is Where the Magic Happens. So if you're interested in the occult, witchcraft, and also there's paranormal stuff that happens as well.
Yeah.
So I'm doing an ongoing paranormal investigation involving her. She's had paranormal experiences since before she was born.
Yeah.
It turns out. So
there's a lot out there. If you want Ryan Singer, you're giving him a whole hell of a lot
so
of great
it's anywhere
stuff
from 2 to 3 episodes of a podcast a
Yeah.
week that I put out, and then 4 albums, full-length live stand-up comedy albums. My YouTube's got all,
The man's giving
hundreds
you a
of
lot of
hours
stuff,
shit.
folks.
Yeah.
And go see him live.
Oh, and I've got a book out there.
There's so much.
Yeah. If you've ever wondered what it's like or if you've ever wanted to see a stand-up comedian's notebook.
Oh, yeah. Ryan's notebooks are works of art.
So I appreciate you saying that. I compiled all of my set lists into into one book.
Yeah.
Called Ryan Singer's Comedy Notebook, and I stopped doing traditional set lists years ago and started
this isn't
doing
just
like
a
drawings.
list of like 5 words or something. Like these are set lists are little portraits of your inner,
so that's
inner mind.
that's on Amazon, self-published. So so lots of stuff out there. Lots of stuff.
Yeah. Ryan, thank you for coming on here and
Jeff, this was
I would
fun.
say elevating the exit strategy discussion.
Well, I appreciate it. This was fun. It's actually given me some things to think about.
Oh, good. Thanks, man. We'll see you next week on Exit Strategy. Bye.